I usually compose at the piano, but I also know that, especially in recent years, thematically, when I'm really thinking of what may be materials, like harmonic or especially melodic materials, I'm better when I'm not constrained to the piano or thinking at the piano or playing something random at the piano. It's almost better sometimes if I'm doing something else and then will write down some thematic material that I will then work out. Brings up a point that I've often seen in young composers, young student composers, is they look at composition like if you're chopping down a forest, you're going to see the first tree and chop down that tree, and then you're not looking at the forest, you're looking at the next tree. And the more you mature as a composer, it's more Gestaltian than that, than linear, concrete, sequential. You look to be above the forest and say, how am I going to shape the forest? So that means working out of themes, working out of individual ideas that you then are going to dress and redress, create and recreate, state and restate in different ways. So I think that is the process for me that gives a total shape to something. You really can't start with writing one note and then the next note and the next phrase or the next note. I need to know, where is this going to go? One of the great things you can learn about like studying the music of J.S. Bach is if you look at how he creates, especially key changes and temporary modulations, where he just makes transient modulations in a big double fugue. He will just touch on key areas, and as you study what he did harmonically, you find out that he had a plan. He just didn't sit and write out that theme and then write out the next theme. He obviously had an architectural plan, and I think if I use the word architecture, that maybe aptly describes what I'm trying to do as I develop the theme or themes, or the musical building blocks. The building blocks are puzzle pieces. It's kind of like, again, if you were doing one of those 500-piece all-day puzzles. You don't take piece here and now look at the table and say, well, where's the one of those 499 that goes with this, right? Would be very frustrating. You take a look at the front of the box and you see that, oh, there's the red barn here. I'm going to group all the red barn pieces, and there's the blue sky, and there's the fence here, and there's the picture of the cow over here. So you start to do that. Composition, I find similar to that, is you're going to group all of these thematic ideas in different ways and shape the architecture of that piece. Does that help? Does that work out? Yes?
I'm interested in the range of experiences you've had hearing one of your commissioned works for the first time.
What I will say about that is that I used to think that I knew best about how to do my music. And then there was a man named Maurice Sconis, who was choral director at Pacific Lutheran for many years, and then was at the University of Arizona, where he had a graduate chorale. And actually, I just mentioned one of the more difficult pieces I've written called O Vos Omnes. And he had brought his grad chorale to where we lived in Moorhead, and we went to the concert, and he had done that piece. And there was a particular section that he did differently than I did, and I thought I liked his better. And so that can be kind of a humbling experience. I think that maybe a piece of music is like looking at a painting in different colored lights or in different times of the day. That if you have a great painting and you see it in the morning light, that may have a different impression than seeing the same painting in the afternoon or the evening light. So I really do like to think that, if the interpreter, if the conductor gets into the water with the music and really tries to feel the texture, the timbre, the line, the shaping of that particular phrase. You know, I've often found it maybe a little different than what I did, but years ago I would have been upset about it. But now it's, oh, I hadn't thought of that. Or, you know, and so I'm really, maybe it's just a function of age, but I do see it as looking at it in different colored lights and saying that I think if there's good musical justification for what a conductor does, I'm happy with that. Now, having said all of that, there are times when my blood pressure just goes up because that conductor didn't have a clue as to what the piece was about, you know, either in terms of tempo or interpretation or whatever. But most of the time I find myself being very patient and appreciative. You know, I think any modern composer now just feels appreciative of your works being done. You know? And hopefully that the work that you're doing as a composer helps to create, again, a healthier, more expressive society. Otherwise, why write? Unless writing, and different composers have, I mean, a lot of younger composers don't feel that way. You know, it's their art, they will write what they want and don't care if it's ever performed. There is that segment. However, I think, again, that betrays my own kind of neo-romanticism, or also the kind of philosophy I have of why I choose to write it comes from out of my own personal expression, but hopefully that music connects to a wider audience, connects to the choir, then connects to the audience, which creates what I would call the aesthetic, right? The aesthetic experience, that which you can't put your fingers on. And I think that when we talk about music and a great performance, and when something really communicates musically or aesthetically, or it can be in any field of the arts, you can't define it. But you know you have to have it. It's like an elixir. You know, once you taste that elixir, like Harry Potter, you know, Wingardium Leviosa, magic happens. And I have a good friend who was not in music, but a wonderful educator that said, if you can define it, it ain't worth teaching. But it's kind of an interesting thought. I'm probably going over time. Are there any other questions, or should we? Yes, one more?
Thought about neo-romantic. Lately, there's more than one definition of romantic. Neo-romantic would be more like Venice, Italy, right?
Well, when I say neo-romantic, I'm talking in terms of compositional style, meaning, you know, Renaissance, Baroque, classic, romantic, the language of the romantic composers. So, I mean, I will write, there are chord progressions that you will hear in the Clauses of Heaven that Brahms would have never written, okay? It goes a little far afield for Brahms, but the sense of line, that's what I mean by neo-romantic, is that it owes to that particular period of composition where actually it's the sweep of the line, the kind of emotional content of the composers Hugo Wolf, Mendelssohn, Brahms, those romantic composers. That's what I'm talking about when I say neo-romantic. My style often kind of harkens back to that sense of, where's the music going? How does it shape itself? Okay? Yes, ma'am. How long did it take to write the Clauses of Heaven? 3 days, maybe 3.5. What I do in writing an anthem-length piece, what I call an anthem-length piece like this, which is about 4 to 5 minutes, is that'll just consume me for the time that I'm writing that. And so that's what I'm doing. my wife will vouch for me on that. She'll go, earth to René, earth to René. But she also has learned over the years that there's sometimes where I'm just in the zone, right, dear? I'm just in the zone. And it's hard for me you can't do it like you're doing your taxes. You can't put it down you can't compose for an hour and then come back to it later. And I have to get to a certain point in the piece so that I can leave it. But otherwise I've got to write it down. I've got to write down what's cooking there. So in that type of piece, if I have the time, then I'd say probably a shorter piece like that, 20 to 24 hours of composition time. And then I'm usually putting it on the computer after that, because I'm writing it out by hand. And then right now, programs such as Finale or other music notation programs, nobody wants a handwritten manuscript anymore. So I enter it note by note into a professional program so that when I gave them the score, it looked professional. It had, everything is clear. Yes?
One of my favorite pieces that you've written is All That Has Life and Breath. I believe that I heard you tell the backstory to that. Can you share that again?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's kind of a two-piece backstory with that. I was in my first college teaching job at Wichita State University, and I had freshmen and sophomores in this group. The tenors were not very good. So the tenor part only goes up to F natural in that piece and just touches it a time or two because I just didn't have very good tenors. And I had an ace soprano soloist from what they call Ark City, down there, Arkansas City. And so I was going to write this piece that would show off this choir and what they could do. But the real part of that story goes to another time, and this is interesting to tell when my wife and my daughter are here. Do you know this part of the story? Okay. So, if this doesn't sound too personal, my wife and I were trying to get pregnant, and we found out that she had a disease called endometriosis. And so she had to have major surgery. It was like hours and hours, and they had to reconstruct her fallopian tubes, whatever. And after that, Dr. Linhart, the performing surgeon, said, well, 50-50, 50-50 on ever having your own children. So we had actually gone through, was it Lutheran or Catholic social service, I forget, but we had gone through all of that. And because there was time after time when it just was not going to work, and we were resigned to we're going to adopt. We want to have a family. And it was a Wednesday afternoon that I was in a faculty meeting in the choral room with the Wichita State faculty, and my wife Frankie. Isn't that my name is Renee and her name is Frankie. But she was standing outside of the door on a Wednesday afternoon, and I think I knew before she told me, but I came out of that faculty meeting, and she told me she was pregnant. And I wrote, all that life and breath, praise ye the Lord, shout to the Lord, hallelujah. And there's actually the Psalm 13 little solo in there which tells of how long, O Lord. There's the whole scene, the whole journey that we went through there. So that's the other kind of part of that story. And I remember that was a Wednesday because she told me, and then we had church choir that night, and we were so excited. We went right to church, but decided to eat something. And we remember, Henry, we stopped at Burger King and we got a Whopper. And we were both on kind of cloud nine that night, and 9 months later, Joshua was born. And then over the years, we've had two others. One of here is here tonight is Katie, who is a librarian in Elgin, right here in the Chicago area, and another daughter, Rachel, who right now is starring in a musical called Sideshow, which is a grad student at Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island. So I don't know if that's what you wanted me to say, but yeah, that's kind of what happened with that, the evolution of that piece. That was a very joyful time. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah.
This piece changes keys several times, and I'm just wondering if you could address how you decide what key to start in, where you're going, and how much that has to do with the composition of the entire piece.
Yeah, usually I'll start with either a flat or a sharp key, depending upon what's the nature of the opening part of the text, and then always thinking what are the ranges. Okay, so again, is the opening of the piece, is it going to be expansive ranges? Is it going to be just unison? Do I need to, what do I need to keep in mind as far as the tessitura and the range? But I may start the piece and just start writing thematically, whatever, and then decide to go back and change that, to go back and re-edit. As I move through the piece, then it's usually something in the text there, where it turns a corner, or the text turns a corner somewhere, and then we'll make a key change, often a non-traditional key change, where we'll go somewhere where you didn't quite think it was going to go. I enjoy that kind of, I think there's a lot of creativity that goes into making a key change. But it usually comes, the impetus for it comes from something that happens in the text, some new idea that says, well, we've been going this direction for a while. Two roads diverged at the Yellow Wood. So let's go this direction and see where that takes us. And then, the decision has to be, well, do you want to return home or not at the end of the piece? And in this piece, the Clause of Heaven, which actually begins in C, and C major, ends in E, which is actually a major third away. But, ever since the dawning of the 20th century, most composers don't feel compelled to end in the same key that they began. This is where the music has changed from the 19th and 18th century. That they might make transient modulations, but if it's a symphony in F minor, they're going to usually end in F. Feel like the journey home needs to be there. I've never really felt that compunction. I just like to go different directions, and if we wind up in the same place at home, fine. If we don't, well, it needs to feel finished. It needs to feel like you've reached the home base, but not necessarily where you started. Well, thank you. This has been a lot of fun for me to talk with you.